Hey guys, welcome to the RAMZPAUL show. It is Thursday, April 3rd. And yeah, it's kind of a rainy day again. Again, it's spring in the Ozarks. We get a lot of rain. And there was quite the tornado in Arkansas, but it wasn't near where I lived. It was more by Memphis, Tennessee. It was in Arkansas, but it was quite the spectacular footage. So we do get tornadoes this time of year because we have the cold air meeting the warm air and it creates turbulent conditions. So, yeah, today's a rainy day, but I'm glad to be with you. And wow, we had a great show last night. I want to thank Z Man. We got in and we kind of geeked out on AI. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube or Rumble or X. It's up there. We had a lot of fun and you guys were a part of it. And I think it was our best show. I think it was our best show. And it was just like a couple of guys talking in a pub about some subject. And it took me back to like my college days. We used to do stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thank you for supporting us on that. It's a lot of fun. And we're going to continue doing this. We'll do it next week. We don't have the topic yet for next week, but if you have suggestions, make a suggestion that's YouTube friendly. We will definitely cover it. So, like certain events, we are not going to do a show about the Holocaust. Okay, I'm just saying we can't do that. So we don't want to get in trouble. But most things we'll talk about. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, if you're new to the RAMZPAUL show, welcome. I do the show Monday through Friday. And Monday through Thursday, we do it at this time, 11 a.m. Central. I typically go an hour. It depends on the show. If I get a lot of super chats, I'll go a little bit longer. And I do appreciate your support, by the way. It helps keep the program on. I don't get external funding. I don't have ads. So I do appreciate it. I don't have like ads on YouTube or anything. I'm ad free. So I appreciate your support. And you could ask a question and help the show. There's a few ways you could do it. YouTube has super chats. I appreciate those. Rumble has an equivalent called rants, and I want to say hi to the Rumble people. Love to support Rumble. There's Powerchats below. I forgot to bring that up. Let me bring that up right now. Powerchats live. That's Powerchats. I really love that tool because you could submit a question or comment before the show or after the show, and I will get it and I will start the show with your question. So thank you for that. And if you, for some reason, don't care for Powerchats, Stream Elements, and I don't have the link here, but it's in the description. They have a tip feature, and that works good. Some people prefer that. So there's quite a few different ways you can ask your question or have a comment, and I do appreciate that. And it's a good week from a content point of view. We had our roundtable this week, and it was just really intense. We went for 3 hours, group of guys, and we talked about all sorts of subjects. And I really loved it. If you want to be part of that, I suggest you sign up for my Substack here. And let me get this up here a little bit. And I'm going to put this out in the chat so you guys can do that. And I put out videos now almost every day, short videos. I did one yesterday. And if you subscribe to me on Substack, you also get a member only video on Friday. So for tomorrow, there will be a video just for my Substack supporters. I really do appreciate that. Substack is my go-to place. It used to be Patreon, then I had to move to Gumroad. And I like Gumroad, okay. I didn't get censored at all on Gumroad, but Gumroad had a lot of technical issues. Like I would send out links and the email wouldn't go out, and a lot of people had issues with Gumroad. So Substack is a very popular platform. They believe in free speech, and it's just technically very solid. A lot of people are on it. It's huge. It's like the size of a Patreon, and it kind of makes sense because Substack is made for publishing either videos. I put my videos up on Substack like tomorrow. For my Friday video, it will be on Substack exclusively, not Rumble or not YouTube. It'll be Substack. And so check that out. I really do appreciate it. And so there is that. And let's see what else is happening. I think that's it. I should, Sasha sometimes reminds me I should pump this. If you want to write me, I'm at P.O. Box 8093, Fayetteville, Arkansas, 72703. I'd love to get your letters. I correspond with people. So does Sasha. We share that mailbox. So either letters you want to do, we get from there. And even though I don't live in Fayetteville, Sasha no longer lives in Fayetteville, but we still go up there quite a bit, and that's our P.O. box. I guess Fayetteville is the closest big city to where I live. And Fayetteville's not that big of a city. It's not even 100,000 people. All right. Let's just see here what is happening. I think the big news today has obviously been the tariffs that Trump put on yesterday. They were pretty significant. And this isn't just a tweak of the financial system. This is a radical restructuring of America. It's sort of going back to a time pre-Bill Clinton and NAFTA and all these globalist trade agreements. Trump is restructuring everything because the globalist agenda, you have to remember, was there shouldn't be any borders. And so if you trade, you just, as a company, you don't give a shit about Americans. You just go where you can get the cheapest labor. And as a company, that makes sense because it lowers your costs. So, for example, Nike, instead of building tennis shoes in the United States, because in the United States, you have to pay workers a certain wage. We have a minimum wage. You have to worry about environmental concerns. You just can't pollute. We have health and safety regulations, which can be expensive. So Nike, instead, they ship all their production to like Vietnam because they work for 20 cents an hour. And if someone should get eaten in a machine, a horrific industrial accident. You guys ever watch those videos? They're pretty grim in China and those places. People getting munched by the machines. They don't give a shit over there. They're just like, clean out the machine, hose it down, and let's continue with production. In the United States, they would get sued and shut down. So it's kind of like these corporations like Nike, they use Vietnam as slave labor so they can make shoes, for 20 cents an hour and then sell it to urban youth here in the United States for $200. It was a good deal for them. And this is the whole idea of globalization with trade, but it was also that way with immigration, because logically, if you can just trade products back and forth, why not people? And so this is why we saw mass immigration and everything else. So Trump has taken it more towards a nationalism point of view of, no, we got to put America first and we want jobs in America. And so this isn't just tweaking a little thing. Beforehand, we've always had some tariffs, and sometimes we respond to tariffs based on policy. If we're mad at a country, or if they have a super high tariff, we'll hit them back or whatever. But it's always sort of been a one-off since Bill Clinton. But now we're going back. No, this is a new policy that we expect things to be built in America. And if you don't build things in America, you're going to get a huge tariff on you. And again, this is radically different than it's been for the past, I would say 30 years. But it's not radically different from our history in America. America's always previously had tariffs. And in fact, we didn't have an income tax until the early, 1913 or 14 in the United States. And even then, it was just for like the millionaires, which by today's standards would be like billionaires. But so the question was, well, how did we fund the government? Well, we funded the government through tariffs. When people send, or other countries send their goods in America, they have to pay a tax, and that tax goes to the Treasury. So tariffs also bring in a lot of money because people, even though they hate to pay the tariff, we still have the biggest economy here. And China and Britain and Canada, they want all their industries to export to America because this is, the prosperous country, especially China. And so they're not going to stop sending products in. They just have to pay the tax. And yeah, they may have to raise their prices some, but they're still under competitive pressure based on plants in the United States. Now, there's the ways that the corporations are going to get around this a little bit. Already, a lot of foreign car companies like Toyota and Subaru, I checked with Grok yesterday. They both have plants in the United States, and that's a way they can get around their tariff. So if you're looking to buy a new car like a Toyota or Subaru, it may not be any more money because they can say, oh, well, we built it in the United States, so we don't have the tariff. And as I said yesterday, there's some loopholes around that. Like, what does it mean to build a car? If they make 90% of it, let's say in Japan, and then just do the final detailing in America, does that count as building the car in America? I don't know. Those are the stuff that has to be worked out. But so the idea for these tariffs are, number one, to bring jobs back to the United States. And I think this is an important thing. This isn't an irrelevant thing. We got to be more as a country than just producing porn and gambling and marijuana. We need to actually create things. And this is going to help encourage that by far. So we're going to have more jobs and more jobs for people of blue collar persuasion, and that helps family formation. Now, the other aspect, because time never stays still, but we'll have another aspect that's happening too with AI and robotics. And Z-Man and I talked about this, and that's going to have a huge impact on employment. So already there's going to be less of a need for humans to do jobs. So we need to get all the jobs we can back to the United States. So there's going to be, I think, in a fundamental change in the way the economy is working, not just in America, but the world. This is fundamental. And it's more than just tariffs, it's also AI. And it's going to create an issue in the future of if humans aren't needed for jobs, what do we do? People, I can't sell my labor because no one wants to hire me. I'm an engineer and the AI can do that. I don't think the libertarian position, well, you can just starve. You can just starve then. I don't think people are going to tolerate that. So you may have to have a universal basic income or something. That's just going to happen because we've never been in this situation in mankind where you don't need human labor. And you can say, well, you still need human labor now. And, oh, you're just like a Luddite. But the Luddites, they were kind of right. You don't need as many farm workers because they were protesting farm machinery because with the modern tractor and stuff, you didn't need tons of peasants working in the fields. And that was true. They all lost their jobs, but they got their jobs in factories in the cities. And that's why we kind of went to a rural economy to cities and factories. So instead of working in the fields, let's say in Arkansas, you would go up to Chicago and get a job in a factory. But what happens when those factory jobs are replaced, either by outsourcing to other countries like China or Vietnam, or robots do the job? And you can say, oh, well, you can get a job fixing the robots. Yeah, but that's not as many people as you need to be employed. So there's going to be a problem there. So we're in a fundamental change of how this is all being structured. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but this is a way it's going to play out. There may be in the future limits to AI because of worries about this, but then some countries will do it. But whatever, we can't afford to have jobs going overseas. And I don't really care about people in Vietnam. We got to care about Americans first. So that's what has to happen. And this isn't, again, just a tweak. Trump called this Liberation Day. And it sounds dramatic, but it is a dramatic change. It's not just a one-off. And we'll have to see. I know the markets really went down yesterday, and even today they're down. But I've learned from stock markets over the years, you got to look at the long-term perspective. I remember, was it 87 when the stock market crashed? I was a new guy in the corporate world, and so, oh, this is the end. This is the end. This is like the Great Depression. This was in 1987. And then, like, within a month, the stock market was booming again, and it boomed throughout the rest of the 80s and the 90s. So you never know. the market always kind of reacts. You can make it, by the way, if I'm not a day trader, but this is how you make a lot of money, is the market always overreacts either way. And you can make money off overreaction. So if you buy now, I'm not doing investment advice, but I wouldn't doubt people that buy now can make a lot of money when, let's say, in a couple of weeks from now, it goes back up, then you sell. So I don't think this will be a huge long-term issue on the stock market. I'm not surprised in the first couple of days, but I think it will recover as the economy adjusts to this. And so I am definitely a favor of tariffs. And one of the things Trump said, and I don't know if this is a real thing, but he's talking about he would like to eliminate income tax. So you guys won't have to pay income tax in the future with these tariffs. Because again, historically, how we got our money for the United States was not through income tax, it was through tariffs. But that'd be nice. I don't know. We'll have to see if the math works on that. I'm skeptical they'll ever get rid of the income tax. So just imagine how nice that would be. They have a lot more money and don't have to file. That'd be, I'd love it. But at the same time, to be fair, as some people brought up when I posted this on X yesterday, 100 years ago, or say 200 years ago, yeah, we didn't have an income tax. I guess like 150 years ago. However, we didn't have a really huge government either. We didn't have a bloated government. The government didn't spend a lot of money. So maybe that's a little bit different too. But whatever, we're going to have a big change. Let's take a look at what J.D. Vance has to say about this. And so here we go. I like J.D. Vance. I hope he's the next president. So let's listen here. Let me turn up the volume too, so you guys can hear good.
Explain to us how you get manufacturing here, but also get the cost down for the American people.
Well, if you go back a little bit, Lawrence, remember during the first Trump administration, everybody said that Trump's tariffs were going to be inflationary back then. What actually happened? We had 1.5% inflation. We had the fastest growing economy in a generation, and we had the beginning of a manufacturing renaissance in the United States of America. Then, of course, we had 4 terrible years of the Biden administration. But I think it's useful for all of us to step back and ask ourselves, what has the globalist economy gotten the United States of America? And the answer is fundamentally it's based on 2 principles: incurring a huge amount of debt to buy things that other countries make for us. And to make it a little bit more crystal clear, we borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the United States of America. For 40 years, we have gone down that pathway. We've seen closing factories. We've seen rising inflation. We've seen the cost of housing so high that most Americans can't afford to buy a home right now. President Trump is taking this economy in a different direction. He ran on that. He promised it, and now he's delivering. And yes, this is a big change. I'm not going to shy away from it, but we needed a big change, Lawrence. We cannot keep going down the Joe Biden globalist pathway where we have $2 trillion of peacetime debt and deficits. We have manufacturing disappearing. That is not working for Americans. We've got to take this country in a different direction.
And I agree 100% with J.D. Vance. And this has been the policy of America since NAFTA. And Ross Perot and Pat Buchanan warned about the long-term consequences of NAFTA and so-called free trade. It's not really free trade because other countries have tariffs, but they warned all this would do is Ross Perot had that famous comment, he'll hear a great sucking sound, sucking the jobs out of America. And that is definitely what has happened. It started with blue collar jobs where, like Ford, instead of building a new factory, let's say in Tennessee or Michigan or Ohio, they would build a new factory in Mexico. That actually happened because they can pay the Mexicans less money and they don't have the health and environmental concerns just right across the border. That's not good for Americans. And we've seen mid-sized cities being devastated with that, and people, that they lose hope. They can't have a good job. And no, not everyone can work at Panda Express or work at fast food and expect to support a family. And we became this horrid service economy. Then they said, oh, well, the solution is screw you. You guys just need to learn to code. You remember that's what the journalists used to say. It was kind of funny because when the journalists were being laid off, some of us would, years ago, before Elon Musk owned Twitter, would mock him, say, oh, well, you just need to learn to code, journalist. And they got so mad, they started to ban people on Twitter if you said that to journalists. But journalists, they said that to like coal miners in West Virginia and other people. Tough shit, learn to code. And now they lost their jobs. They don't like to hear that. That was always a stupid thing for a variety of reasons. Not everyone has the aptitude to code. And I don't mean blue collar workers are stupid. They're not. I mean, there's different people have different abilities. I'm not a great guy, but I wouldn't be a great blue collar worker. I don't have the aptitude, but a lot of people have the aptitude of being real mechanical and fixing things. But a lot of those people, they can be brilliant in fixing things, but they can't really understand math or more sophisticated stuff like coding. And that doesn't mean they're lesser people. It's just you have different skills. But we always were kind of the elite, kind of had a snobby view. Well, they're dirty people, tough. Hell with them. We'll send their jobs to Mexico or China. Well, now, so number one, those people couldn't learn to code, and you don't need that many coders. But what has happened now white collar people are seeing they're getting bit in the ass with globalization, because the jobs like programming jobs, it used to be, oh, if you go get a programming degree, you're guaranteed a job for life. You got job security. And that turned out to be fake because they're shipping these jobs to India. And even though a lot of the Indians do a poor job and they kind of lie about things, that was the pattern that happens. So Americans can't get a job in coding. So if you're like a white guy, you're not going to get a job in coding anymore in America. And then you have the H-1Bs come over. They should be eliminated too. And they just hire other Indians. They won't hire you if you're white. And, here we are. We're in this problem. So that turned out to be a dead end. And now you don't even need the Indians because of AI. AI can do all that work a lot better than Indians, and you can understand AI better than, let's say, Indian offshoring. There's no accent. So AI is going to radically change that too. So we have a lot of stuff going on here. And so we got to try to bring back the economy as best we can into America. And as I said, our economy needs to be more than gambling casinos, young girls whoring themselves out on OnlyFans, and marijuana shops. We need something more if we're going to be a healthy country. And so I agree with J.D. Vance. This isn't a minor change. This is a major change. And I think this is something that has to happen in order for this to be to work. And let's see here. Let me just show you a couple things about the tariffs. And Trump came out yesterday with this. He had a big announcement. And they showed kind of a chart here of either what tariffs other countries have or how they're doing currency manipulation. It's not necessarily the tariffs, but Trump is showing how he's trying to even things out with these countries. And he listed all sorts of countries based on this formula. And again, some countries that have been really clobbered, like Cambodia and Vietnam, and China, because again, China depends on the American market. And if they can't sell competitively in America, China could even have political instability. This is going to be really quite interesting. So we will see. This is what Trump called Liberation Day. And I think we have Steve Miller talking about this a little bit. We will hear him.
Can you talk about the president's historical view on global trade and the tool of tariffs or the use of tariffs that he envisions, not just through Liberation Day today, but how he's used it over the years?
Yes. Well, the announcement today is the most significant action on global trade policy that has taken place in our lifetimes.
Yeah, it's probably the most in history, really, because as of yesterday, globalism ended. Now, who knows how long that will last? Well, there'll be a lot of pressure on Trump to try to pull these back. Trump, I don't know how firm he's going to be on this, but this is something it's going to be good for America long term. But you got to be able to understand the first couple of days on the stock market, it's going to be red. People are going to be screaming and carrying on. And he's got to have enough strength to overcome that.
It's not even a close call. I mean, this is probably the biggest event that's happened on global trade since the very ill-fated decision that we are now reversing of knocking down all of America's trade tariffs and revenue policies that led to the offshoring and outsourcing of all of our industries. So this is the great reversal of that great portrayal, is how it.
Yeah, this is a rolling back NAFTA and all those policies that have destroyed America. Now, they provided a lot of cheap stuff from China. That is true. And now you have big Walmarts and you have these fat people waddling through Walmart, and you have people that can't afford a house anymore. You have people that can't get jobs. There's no more factory jobs, and they just smoke marijuana all day and go to the casino. This is not for a healthy economy, though.
Or look at it. So in the 20th century, successive American presidents knocked down all of the policies that we had to protect American industry. And they did insane things like letting China into the World Trade Organization, as an example. And we watched all of our factories go overseas. This is the complete reversal of that. This is the great onshoring, the great reshoring of.
And this is good. It needs to be done more than just for factories. So this is a start. Then it needs to be done in programming. We need to eliminate the H-1B program. Those nice Indians, I'm sure they're super intelligent, and they need to go back to India. They can make India great again with their brilliance, and maybe get some indoor plumbing, and they can work on that. And we need the American programming and engineering jobs to be for Americans.
Of American jobs and wealth. So if you look at America today, we're totally dependent on foreign countries for the supplies that make this country run, for all of the essential goods, materials, manufactured products that make it possible for us to live our lives, our cars, our electronics, all the materials that go into our homes, our buildings, our medical supplies, our entire supply chains are completely embedded in foreign countries. So if there's a national emergency of any kind, and a country shuts off an import, or a foreign power embargoes a sea lane, we are then left defenseless.
Yeah, this is a national security concern, and there's no way. I know all these neocons are talking tough, and they want war with, let's say, Russia, of course, and they want war with Iran, and then they want war with China. Well, how are we going to fight a war with China? Well, I don't want a war, but the neocons, they always want war. How are we exactly going to do that when China has all the manufacturing? And modern missiles, they're not dumb. They have chips, computer chips on them. And if all those chips are made in Taiwan and China takes over Taiwan and they just stop it, what the hell are we going to do? And you can say, oh, well, at that point, we could build factories. Yeah, but that takes a long time. You can't do that overnight. So we're screwed. We're defeated. We're defeated is the answer to that. It is a security risk to have all our manufacturing overseas. It makes for a weak country. And we see this now with Britain. Britain used to be the powerhouse in the world, and they had the Navy, the Royal Navy. They were the most powerful nation until about halfway through the 20th century. They were the 19th century, by far, they're the most powerful nation. They had industry, they had the coal, they had steel, they shipbuilding, all of that. Now, Britain, they've shut down their last steel factories, and all their economy now is just bullshit. And they bring in a bunch of foreigners, and they like to try to arrest white people for defending themselves. That's their economy at this point, and they're swirling down the drain. And yet, Starmer, he's trying to threaten Russia, like, oh, if you don't agree to deal, we're going to send British troops. I'm like, what? You have like 3 tanks? What are you talking about? You guys are weak. You're not like you were in the 19th century. You're a weak island now because of your policies, which people like me warned about. Oh, that's just so xenophobic, racist. Well, okay, now look where you are. And so their opinions are irrelevant. And we don't want to end up like that. We don't want to end up like Canada. We want to be a strong nation. If we're going to be a strong nation, it's not optional, it's required, we have manufacturing in the United States. Whether it be done by AI, robots, or humans, that's another question, but it needs to be done here.
Helpless because of the decisions that prior leaders made that President Trump is now reversing to let all of these industries leave our country. And so what he's doing today is, for the first time ever, he's saying that if you have stolen our jobs and therefore threatened our national security, we will apply a reciprocal tariff based on the degree of your misconduct. So for countries like China, for example, they will see a very high tariff rate because they've engaged in the most egregious conduct that threatens our national security. For countries that have severe but not as severe misconduct, they'll see a moderate but not as high tariff rate. The effect, though, of those global tariffs will be that companies will have to move their production back into the United States. So factories will leave, whether it be Mexico or Canada or Vietnam or Cambodia or China or the European Union. They will come back to the United States.
They don't have to come back to the United States, but if they don't come back to the United States, they pay the tariff, which is good because then we get a lot of revenue. Maybe they can lower or eliminate our income tax. That'd be fine too.
To produce their products, to make their goods. And in so doing, yes, it will create jobs. Yes, it will increase revenues. But most importantly, it will restore our national security so that we will not be dependent on anyone else to survive and thrive as a nation. That's the significance we're talking about today, the most important economic event of our lifetimes.
And Stephen,
I agree with Stephen Miller on this. And the only question I have is Trump going to have the strength to be able to, hold off all the people that bitch about this. So it's going to require some resolve. And it's a good thing that Trump is doing this early in the his administration, because I think we're going to see the improvements come pretty soon. But initially, the stock market will take a dive because, again, a lot of these companies like Nike, their model is based on cheap slave labor in Cambodia or Vietnam. Same with Apple, right? They use their slave labor overseas to build their iPhones. And so this is going to be interesting. Hey, I got a power chat from Son of Thunder. Thank you, Son of Thunder. I think it is funny that the leftists are suddenly so concerned with pass-through taxes, but they still support corporate taxes, payroll taxes, etc., that are passed on to the consumer. Yeah, this is sort of funny because they said, yeah, let's tax these evil rich corporations, right? They're always on that. And as us as conservatives said, well, if you put high taxes on corporations, they have to make the revenue, so they'll just pass it on to the consumer. Or, for example, let's say if you raise the minimum wage in California at McDonald's, well, what's going to happen? Either McDonald's has to try to cut costs by automating or getting rid of workers or raising their prices. And we've seen that. So obviously that does happen. So this is interesting how leftists don't understand this. But this is a little different. This is a little different tariffs because we're not saying necessarily they have to pay more. They don't have to pay a tariff. A tariff is optional, right? So it's like IBM, Apple, Nike. You don't have to pay a tariff. You just have to make sure you have your manufacturing here in America and hire Americans. And by hiring Americans, we're improving our country. Those people that were working at Panda Express are now have a good paying job, and they can build a family and start their lives. May not be rich, but they're doing well, and we're helping our national security. And there's a lot of good things out of this, and so you don't have to pay the tariff anymore. So this is kind of the trade-off we're seeing here, and I think this is a wise trade-off. And again, we'll just have to see if Trump has the strength to oppose this craziness of the left and their globalism. And even libertarians like Rand Paul, they're out to lunch. No, we're against tariffs because, I read about that once, but it's it just destroys a nation. It's not even theoretical anymore. We have an example. NAFTA, how it's destroyed America, it's devastated our industrial production. So, yeah, I think this is, thank you for your power chat. I appreciate that. But yeah, I do think this is going to be a key thing. So, so good comments also by Stephen Miller on that. And Trump has done a lot of good things, and sometimes I criticize him for some things, but I got to praise him for a lot of other things, right? And this is a good one. Breaking, it's being reported that President Trump is likely to announce replacing the IRS with the ERS, External Revenue Service, which will fund the government through tariffs and other trade deals instead of the federal income tax. Again, I'm skeptical that will really happen. But I'm just kind of skeptical in nature. But if Trump's able to do this, he'll be the greatest president ever in U.S. history. I would love not to have to pay income tax. I don't know about you guys. Wouldn't that be nice? And but we will see. We will see. And a little bit more about the tariffs. Some commentary on this. The biggest white pill is watching Wall Street chimp out. The people who wanted us to believe an ESG index, that was their DEI stuff, a measure of how many non-Asian minorities you hire and how many environmental patronage schemes you subsidize. They're saying that they're upset about the tariffs when ESG was actually a bigger tax on corporations. And that is funny. And so it's the way I kind of sometimes determine things is how evil people react. And evil people hate these tariffs. So that gives me a clue they must be good. All the bad people hate these tariffs. So that means Trump's onto something good. Now, we still have the media. This is kind of silly, but they still do their silly propaganda. Let me show you some of their propaganda they're doing here. This was Trump. This is CNN. And you notice, look at Orange Man bad, right? Look at, he looks orange there. This is CNN. Now look at Fox News. He doesn't look as orange. And this is the same live feed. Why does he look more orange on CNN than he does on Fox News? Well, it's just a little propaganda device that CNN's doing. They put an orange filter to make him look orange to try to discredit him. Orange man bad. So this is a petty bullshit that we have to deal with our media, the propaganda they run against us. They can't do anything straight. They always have to be slimy tricksters, and they're snakes. And this is how it is here. All right. Let's see here. A couple other things. That's kind of about it about the tariffs. And again, I think tariffs will be a good thing, but this is a huge adjustment, and the markets are going to be in turmoil probably for a few weeks, but then it will straighten out. That's my prediction. All right. The other thing now, they've kind of started this narrative. I've seen that Trump is really upset at Elon Musk and he's going to fire him. Let's just take a look at this here.
Elon Musk's special government tenure is coming to an end, 130 days, I think another month. Yeah. Do you want him to stay longer, or is it time for him to go back to running his companies in Europe?
Well, I think he's amazing, but I also think he's got a big company to run. And so at some point he's going to be going back. He wants to.
You want to keep him around?
But I'd keep him as long as I could keep him. He's a very talented guy. I love very smart people. And he's very smart. And he's done a good job. DOGE has, we found numbers that nobody can even believe, like 400 billion, 500 billion. It could be close to $1 trillion by the time they end on different things. And he's led the charge. And you've seen a lot of his people. And these are people that joined up. I always say they're high IQ people. I like high IQ people. And they've done a great job. No, at some point, Elon's going to want to go back to his company. I will say he's got, despite the way he's been treated, so he's an American patriot, but the way he's been treated with Tesla is just terrible. It's just terrible.
Once he goes
In fact,
back,
you have a Tesla, and you love it. He was saying before he bought a Tesla, he loved it. A lot of people are buying Teslas, I think, and I hope they are. He should not be treated that way. He's done an incredible service to our country.
once he goes back, is Doge going to keep operating even without Elon here?
Well, I can't tell you that. I can say this, that a lot of the people that are working with Doge are the secretaries, the heads of the various agencies, and they've learned a lot, and they're dealing with the Doge people. I think some of them may try and keep the Doge people with them, but, at a certain point, I think it will end. But they have also gotten a big education, and they're doing a really good job. There'll be a point at which the secretaries will be able to do this work and do it very, as we say, with the scalpel. And that's what we want.
So this is kind of clearing the misconceptions, because the media was trying to do this narrative that Trump is pissed off at Elon Musk and he's going to be firing Elon Musk soon. And once Elon Musk leaves Doge, I'm sure the news media will say, oh, is this a total failure? Trump is outraged and he fired Elon Musk. Again, this is how slimy the media is and their lies. Doge from the very beginning, even when Vivek was part of it, remember, then he stepped down to run for governor of Ohio. But from the very beginning, they said this is a temporary project. This isn't going to be we don't want Doge to become some new government agency that keeps growing every year and we never get rid of it, because that's part of the problem. They said we want a temporary project to identify waste and fraud within the government. And they identified a lot of waste and fraud, and especially with like USAID, how they were sending money to censor Americans and fund money to leftist organizations, give money to Soros. They did a lot of stuff, and they saw a lot of fraud in the Social Security, where no, they're not trying to cut Social Security, but they're saying, why are we giving Social Security to people that are 150 years old? Why are we giving Social Security to illegal aliens or criminals? They're not supposed to get it. This is supposed to be for Americans. It's threatening the system. They've done a lot of good things, and he's come under a lot of criticism, and that means they're over target. All the bad people were screaming like hell at Elon Musk, so much so they were encouraging terrorism against Elon Musk and firebombing Tesla dealerships. They want to do that unless Elon Musk was over the target, threatening their funding. But it was always stated that this was a temporary project. Elon Musk is already the richest guy in the world. He didn't need to do this. And I do think he's a patriot, because he didn't have to do this. He's rich beyond belief. He doesn't have to. There's no reason for him to do this, but he really loves the country and wants to see he doesn't want to see the United States government implode because of financial problems. And that's where we were heading. So he went in and did this. It was a thankless job, and it was always said a temporary job. And eventually he's going to leave. And Doge, from the very beginning, they said they're going to shut it down eventually. They don't want this to go on forever. They just need the initial to see the fraud and abuse. So I think that made it clear that Trump is not upset at Elon Musk. The media has always been trying to get them to fight with each other, and it's been very transparent. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump have laughed about it, and the media is still trying to do that. And I'm sure when Elon Musk does leave, because he said this is a temporary project, they're going to spin it that Trump was real mad at him and it was a failure. But you just saw Trump said, hey, I'd like to keep him forever, but this is a temporary thing. He's eventually going to go back to managing, X, Tesla, SpaceX. He's got enough on his plate than to have to do this. So so that's the situation there. I think that's a good thing, though. So eventually, I guess it's 130 days we're going to do Doge. So we'll see. And Rojas, in a break from economics, if the races were reversed, media will never cover this, and everyone sees now. Yeah, let's take a look at this. I did have this in prep, so thank you, Rojas, for this.
The sad part about it is he died in his brother's arms. They were twins, identical twins, and his brother was holding on to him, trying to make it stop bleeding. and he died in his brother's arms. And I rushed up there, and I saw him on the gurney, and I could tell. They said he wasn't breathing. I could see all the blood. I saw where the wound was.
Understandably still in shock, Jeff Metcalf says a precious memory was made just this past weekend when he took his twin boys hunting. That's where Austin got his first hog. Well, this morning at around 10, he rushed here to Kirkendall Stadium, where the Memorial High School student athlete suffered a fatal stab wound during this track and field meet. Frisco police say a fight broke out between two students when one stabbed the other. More than 100 student athletes were participating in this meet. Fortunately, they were safely evacuated. Police arrested the suspect. He is 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony of Frisco. He is now charged with murder. Austin is being remembered as an outstanding student at Memorial High, his football team's MVP, and a young man of faith. His father grappling with loss and forgiveness.
I'm not trying to judge, but what kind of parents did this child have?
Well, he probably didn't have a father, but yeah, this is a very common story, and thank you for sending that. And you're right. So what happened there? A white football player and athlete. He was I guess the black got upset, was jealous of him, and so the black stabbed him to death. And yeah, you're right. As if imagine the races were reversed, a black athlete was stabbed to death by a white player because he was jealous. Yeah, it'd be international news. And sadly, though, if they made like if Netflix should make a documentary about the case, they will race swap it. They'll have it. The little black boy was stabbed to death by the white racist. And sadly, most interracial crime is black on white. It's not, despite the propaganda you would think on Hollywood, it's not white on black. White on black crime is extremely rare. They still, Emmett Till, they still bring up from 65, 70 years ago. But the vast majority, over 90%, is blacks target whites, not the other way around. But you wouldn't know that by watching TV because they want to have a demoralization propaganda. And we see this all the time, how they do it, and they try to hide it. And in England, it's the same way now. And let me see it here. Let me just see if I can bring this up as an example of this. So in England, what they're doing, because they had an incident where this African immigrant to England stabbed to death a girl because he was mad at her. She probably rejected his sexual advances. This is typical. And he responded by stabbing her to death, right? So England decided to Netflix made a movie based on that, not exactly based on it, but that was based on it. But instead, it's called Adolescence. They showed a white kid. This is the one time they used the white boy as the villain that is evil and toxic. And so they're trying to push us to schools saying, yes, the white boys that are toxic, they have the toxic masculinity. They are the dangerous one with the knife crimes. When if you look at the data, and I asked Grok this, disproportionately, the knife violence is because of immigrants that come in. Is the Muslims and Africans doing the knife crimes. White kids very rarely do. There'd hardly be any crime otherwise in England. But that doesn't fit the narrative. So Netflix, they race swapped it and had an evil white boy so they could tell like these little Karens. So like a Karen in Portland living in an all white area can watch this and say, oh, we got to do something about these evil white men. It's a crude form of propaganda. Technically, it's a blood libel these people are running on our people. But this is what they're doing. It is sad. So thank you for that, KMAX. That is a issue that they have, though. And yeah, so in Britain, they're going to be running this propaganda that the knife crime is really because of white boys. All right. Here we go. There is some I was never a Harry Potter fan, really. I don't think it's that great, but this is interesting. I do like J.K. Rowling about this transgender thing. And we had this lady girl was very courageous. So let's take a look at this here. So what it is this this is supposed to be female fencing, but instead they have this guy that he now pretends to be a girl and he wants to compete against girls. This is kind of the setup. So she took the knee, and I guess in fencing that means you concede, you're not going to fight. And she was saying, I'm not going to fight this guy. This is supposed to be female fencing, but instead we have this pervert who's pretending to be a girl, and I'm not going to fight a dude. So this guy, he's got a hair bun, but he's asking, why aren't you going to fight me? And she's like, I'm not going to fight a dude. I know you're pretending to be a woman, but you can't change your sex biologically. It's silly. So that was what happened. I guess there's nothing exciting, but what happened is the female fencer who took a knee against a male opponent, and again, this is one of those guys that pretends he's a girl, faces immediate disqualification after receiving a black card for refusing to compete against a man. Redmond Sullivan's female opponent was expelled from the USA fencing event in the University of Maryland. So this is at the University of Maryland. And she refused to compete against a man that was pretending to be a girl. And we need more of this. That was a brave thing for her to do. And we shouldn't tolerate this nonsense with this. But this is what we're having right now. And so good for her for taking a stand. I think more women need to do this and push back on this. And good for that. And let's see here. I got a power chat or super chat. So let me get this here. And this is thank you, Widukind. Greetings from the middle of Europe. Well, thank you. I love Europe. That is my ancestral homeland, obviously. And I spent a lot of time in Hungary a few years ago, as you guys knew, probably. And I really, really love Hungary. It's beautiful people, beautiful architecture. And I went around and I did a speech in Finland and Sweden. Some of the best people I've ever met were in Sweden and Finland. Great people, great nationalists, by the way. I know you always think of Swedes as, oh, they're so cucky and soy. No, not the nationalists. They're badass. They really were. They were like the toughest I've ever seen. I've been in Germany and England. That's my homeland. I really do love Europe. It's sad what's happening in Europe, but I'm not trying to put America above that. In a sense, a lot of this toxic, woke bullshit that is infecting Europe came from America, sadly. I mean, we have a common enemy that's trying to destroy us. We got to be awakened to that. But yeah, thank you. I really hope the best for Europe. That's, again, my ancestral homeland. I hope everyone does well in Europe. So, and I hope that war ends quickly in Europe too. With Ukraine, it is pretty crazy there, what's happening there. All right, let's see here. Couple of things with this concerning the war in Europe, since I got that Europe chat. I really do appreciate that. Let's see. This is breaking. Russia rejects U.S. demands and negotiations. See, part of the problem with this, and I said Trump, and I hope J.D. Vance can try to influence Trump a little bit on this. Trump is good, but he's got a kind of the boomer neocon tendencies, especially when it comes to Israel. But I think Trump was naive concerning the whole Ukrainian war, what was happening there. And he just thought he could go in and demand both sides, oh, let's just stop where we are now. But that doesn't really solve anything from Russia's point of view. Russia wants certain guarantees. They want to have their, I don't see how you get, it's going to be decided on the battlefield, because if you boil down the war, Russia considers Eastern Ukraine and Crimea to be theirs. And their claim is the majority of people there, ethnic Russians, those people voted to be part of Russia, the self-determination. There are people, they want to be part of our nation. And these people were being persecuted by the Ukrainians after the Americans sponsored a coup in 2014 against the elected president. And that was under Obama, and Victoria Nuland, who was the, neocon, was to say it this way, that led the coup, and Soros started this. And so then they worked on various agreements. They had the Minsk, M-I-N-S-K Accords. They had 1 and 2. Ukraine broke both of them. And there was actually audio saying that European leaders were saying, yeah, we signed this peace agreement just so we could build up arms against Russia. We'd never intended to abide by it. So Russia's not going to have any of that anymore. That's their territory, and they want to defend it, and they want to make sure they're secure in the future. Ukraine, Zelensky, Macron, the head of France, and Starmer, they want to defeat Russia. And this really wasn't a war about Ukraine. It was a war to try to overthrow Russia, break it apart. So we would have gay pride parades in Moscow. BlackRock would be in there. That was the whole idea. And the war really wasn't so much, it wasn't even a proxy war between the United States and Russia. I would say it was more of a coalition war where the Ukrainians were the ones who primarily fought, but we provided the funding and the tactics. The New York Times, they had a huge article that admitted this all, that all the attacks and all the planning was done by generals in Washington. And the Russian generals, despite the propaganda, outsmarted the American, Miley, Austin Lloyd, that big black guy that disappeared for a while, no one noticed. The Russian generals outsmarted those guys, and they won basically every battle. But this was a war that was being fought by the Americans via using the Ukrainians as pawns. And now Russia's winning, and they're like, yeah, why should we agree to a ceasefire when that would just allow you to rearm Ukraine? So I think this is just going to be decided on the battlefield now. There's not going to be some negotiated settlement. It's just the way it is. The best thing that Trump could do with this and Iran is to say, hey, I'm America first. We as Americans, we want peace, and we'll help any peace initiatives, but we're not going to get involved anymore with this war. We're not going to plan this war. We're not going to send money or weapons. And we're not going to use the Ukrainians to fight this war for us. We're out of this. That should be Trump's position. And instead, he wants to, I think Trump, because of his ego, wants to be seen as the guy that brought peace and have a peace settlement. I get it. But the problem is Russia sees that, we've already had pieces. Ukraine always violates it. It's just a way for Ukraine to build back up. So we're ending this. And I understand Russia's point of view on this, and they're winning. And why should they, and if we pull out of it, again, as I said, Starmer and Britain's a weak third world country now. They can't really fight. They don't have any manufacturing. Their army's a joke. So I think it's just going to be decided on the battlefield. And I think once Trump understands that, I think that would be better for America if he did that. So that's my recommendation. We will see on that what happens. Rojas, $5. There's a two-tier justice system, only opposite of what our media says there is. Okay, let's just take a look at this. Yeah, this came out last week. This is in Britain. Let's take a look at this here. Thank you, by the way. Who is that here? Sorry about that. Oh, Rojas. That was Rojas. Okay, sorry about that. And let me get this up here. Yeah, this was pretty outrageous.
Sir Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, who is the Justice Secretary, and saying, I'm afraid to say, these are what's going to happen. And from Tuesday, this is what will happen. Judges will prepare pre-sentencing reports where necessary. And if someone is of ethnic, cultural, or faith minority, or a young person under 25, or a woman, or a pregnant woman, they will get a special sentencing report. Normally, those pre-sentencing reports do mean that the sentence is mitigated, that time is taken off for a jail term, for example. What it means, though, is that white men are going to be treated a lot tougher by judges from Tuesday compared to other groups in society.
Yeah, so Britain now officially, and this is a insanity that we've been under, and it's sad, but this is in Britain now officially. There's a two-tier justice system. So white men or white Englishmen, the people that built Britain, they are second-class citizens. So if you stab someone and you're from Africa, maybe you'll get a year in prison. But if you're a white man that stabs someone, even though white men don't do that very much, you're getting 5 years. That's their official policy. So it's a two-tier justice system that discriminates based on race. So they recognize race. All these people that I don't understand race, they understand race, but they just anti-white. That's because the people that implemented these woke policies out of the Frankfurt School, that got kicked out of Germany, they want to eliminate the white race. And this is how they're doing it, is by various ways, like in showing adolescents, showing that, oh, the evil knife crime is because of evil white boys, not Africans coming in. And, oh, if you're white and you try to defend yourself, you're the one that's going to jail, and with stiffer penalties. So, yeah, they've definitely declared war on our people. That is 100% the way it is. I don't know how else to show it. This is the way it is right now in Britain. And I think we should put a higher tariff on Britain. We should do no trade at all. There should be a travel ban to Britain. They're a tyranny. They're kind of like North Korea now. And I'd be fine if Trump wanted to send weapons and try to liberate Britain, because Britain's a tyrannical government that's trying to destroy its own people. It's really sad what's happening there. It's very evil. But this is what they want to do in America too. If they had their way in America, they would say white people have to pay a higher tax than other people. White people have to go to prison longer than other people. I'm serious. This is what they would do. No doubt about it. So I'll let that be a warning to everyone. Let's see here. Okay, I think I got everything for today. It's been an hour. And guys, thank you so much. It's been a fun show. And just as a reminder, today's Thursday. So tomorrow I do have a show, and tomorrow it's not at 11 a.m. tomorrow. As a reminder, we do a call-in show on Friday. We call into the show. It's a little bit more kickback. I do that at 8 p.m. Central. So call in tomorrow night. It's kind of the way to end the week. And I will have a video out Friday morning for people that subscribe to my Substack. So it's been a good week. It's been a busy week, kind of crazy week in some ways, but that's okay. And guys, thank you so much. I love you all. And thank you very much for watching. And be sure to like and subscribe and tell other people about the show. I do appreciate you. I'm kind of a one-man band. I'm not like Tim Pool. I'm not like the Quartering that has a whole staff. It's just me, and I do appreciate it.